To be, I mean, the way they're going, it looks like they're just about going to be topping records hopefully soon. Excuse me?
We do have a Truth Social statement that Tom referenced that we want to read for you now. This is President Trump on his Truth Social just a little.
Northeastern Prince George's County, 34 kilometers from the White House, 317. 107 operators were already moving through wet tree line and service road shadow. Inside the compound, 51 defenders still believed 8 cameras, 3 gatehouses, and 2 hardened archive rooms made them invisible. The objective was 2 steel evidence crates and 1 sealed ledger vault tied to the shots that froze Washington. They had 43 minutes before the site began erasing itself. They thought it couldn't be taken. They were wrong. Black Orchard looked like a private logistics yard 11 kilometers east of Bowie and 9 kilometers south of Laurel. That was the cover. Under the sodium lights sat 3 low warehouses, a backup generator shed, a fuel bowser, and a villa-style operations house with blackout curtains and 2.4-meter anti-scale fencing. The target was not the property. It was what the property held. Inside those 2 crates were camera relays, serial-tagged suppressor sleeves, route cards, and a payment ledger linking the Harrow cell to the men who had turned a ceremonial evening near the executive complex into a live-fire panic. If you want the full story of what was waiting inside that ledger vault, hit like right now, because the next 43 minutes decide everything. By 3:21, the rain had thinned to a cold mist at 7 degrees Celsius. No one on the inside knew their own logistics had betrayed them. The site mattered because it was not just a hideout. It was a clearinghouse. Money came in through Meridian Recovery Office, a shell consultancy with 1 suite near Greenbelt and another mail drop 6 kilometers west of Upper Marlboro. Vehicles came in through Gray Banner Logistics, which had rented 3 refrigerated trucks in 19 days, each one returning with less fuel than its route sheet could explain. Names came in through Capital Protective Analysis Bureau, a fake research nonprofit that had quietly bought access lists, event staffing rosters, and temporary badge histories. This wasn't a revenge raid. It was a custody race. If the crates moved north, the shooters vanished into layers of deniable contractors, courier swaps, and offshore billing trails. If the ledger burned, every middleman between the trigger men and the mastermind disappeared with it. At exactly 3:24, the pattern that broke the case finally lined up. A 7.4-meter box truck had visited Black Orchard 4 times in 12 days, always between 1:10 and 1:40, always stopping first at a fuel point off Annapolis Road, then idling 18 minutes beside a closed produce warehouse in Beltsville. Outside, a farm supply invoice listed 14 pallets of feed that weighed 620 kilograms on paper and 1,480 kilograms at the axle. Underground, a repeater in the villa basement woke for 11-minute bursts at 22:08, 0:16, and 2:12, using the same burst length each night like a metronome. The problem: careful men had become repetitive men. The solution: watch the rhythm, not the walls. By 3:27, analysts had matched 1 gate shift to a phone left on a dashboard at South River Marina 29 kilometers southeast of the district line. Another guard took a 26-minute smoke break every 3rd night. A third used his son's gaming account to message the same handle in Delaware at 1:54, 1:53, 1:55, and 1:54 again. They weren't there for revenge. They were there for pattern failure. Then came the paper trail. A blue binder recovered 62 kilometers northeast of the Capitol from a burned sedan shell contained a folded route map, 4 clipped photos of federal approach lanes, an access list dated 2 days early, and a handwritten note that simply read, "Transfer before dawn, no delay, no second attempt." That line changed the clock. It meant the objective could still move. It also meant somebody above the shooters was still close enough to touch it. Comment ledger below if you want to know what they found on the access list that night. From the defenders' perspective, Black Orchard was untouchable. They had layered perimeter security, a gravel kill zone between outer fence and warehouse doors, thermal poles on the north tree line, motion alarms on the drainage cut, and a 15-minute quick reaction packed with a Sentinel advisory group garrisoned near the Patuxent corridor. The villa windows were mirrored. The inner doors were sealed. The archive room sat behind poured concrete and steel shutters thick enough to stop panic and delay certainty. They believed distance was armor. They believed private money bought silence. They believed 51 armed men, 3 armored SUVs, and 4 minutes of warning would hold until reinforcements arrived. They were wrong. At 3:31, Task Group Iron Lantern split into 4 elements. Alpha owned the perimeter. Bravo owned the villa. Charlie owned the warehouses and every corridor between loading bay and ledger room. Delta owned the road outside, the choke point beyond the pines, and the timer that mattered most. Because this was timer against timer. Move time against wipe time. Reinforcement time against extraction time. The first countdown was 43 minutes until the archive began its internal burn cycle. The second was 28 minutes until the nearest Sentinel convoy could clear its own staging yard. The third was 17 minutes until a courier sedan, already 14 km away near Route 197, could reach the south gate. No warning. No delay. No second attempt. By 3:34, the north cameras were blind. Not destroyed. Blind. That distinction mattered. From the outside, the feed still looked alive for 94 seconds, long enough for the defenders to keep trusting a picture that no longer belonged to them. Outside, Alpha had already sealed the drainage cut and the east orchard lane. Inside the compound, the first 3 defenders never understood the clock had turned. This wasn't a charge. It was a collapse in place. At exactly 3:38, Bravo forced the villa ground floor into darkness. Generator 1 cut out. Emergency strips came on in thin red bands along the stairwell and corridor walls, throwing every moving shape into hard relief. A man in the command room reached for a wipe console. He never finished the sequence. Type yes if you think stopping the wipe timer was worth every second of the risk. 3:42. Charlie had the West warehouse. 6 defenders were pinned behind pallet stacks wrapped in black plastic and marked as refrigeration parts. They weren't refrigeration parts. They were transit shells, foam-lined, numbered, and built to hide steel cases under cold chain paperwork. One shell still held condensation from a same-night move. That meant the Mastermind had expected traffic before sunrise. By 3:47, the fight had compressed into 3 corridors and 1 stairwell. The corridor fight was short, violent, and ugly in the way all sealed spaces are ugly. But the narration of it was simple. Doors failed, angles disappeared, and defenders who had counted on distance suddenly had none. Underground, Delta reported headlights on the county road. Reinforcements. Too early for comfort. Too late for rescue. The defenders had built their confidence on the wrong geometry. They understood fences, fields, and fire lanes. They did not understand what happens when the real objective is not the compound but the paperwork inside it. The ledger room opened at 3:51. Not by miracle. By accumulation. Fatigue, confusion, a wrong key ring, a captured access badge, and a timing window defenders thought no one else had noticed. That was the mistake. Inside sat 2 steel crates, each 41 kilograms, sealed with yellow evidence tabs and serial strings beginning HX91 and HX94. Beside them were 5 black binders, 1 tablet in a shock case, 3 route books, and a cashier's log showing $18.6 million moved through 6 shell entities in 47 days. They weren't there for trophies. They were there for custody. At 3:56, the discipline moment began. No cheering. No rush of hands. Photos first. Serials second. Seal condition third. Chain of custody cards were clipped in order, timestamps spoken twice, and every binder spine read into the record before anything left the shelf. One operator weighed crate HX91 at 40.8 kilograms. Another confirmed HX94 at 41.3 kilograms. The tablet battery sat at 18% and still warm. That meant recent access. That meant the Mastermind had been here, or someone close enough to speak for him had been here, within the same operational cycle. If you want the full story of what was inside crate HX94, share this because paper trails like that do not stay buried. By 4:02, the courier sedan had reached the south gate. It found Delta waiting on the road bend 400 meters short of the entrance, where wet asphalt narrowed between a stone wall and drainage ditch. The car never made the handoff. Its passenger tried to burn a packet the size of a paperback. Not captured. Not reclaimed. Gone. But the surviving fragments were enough. 2 initials, 1 offshore account code, and a departure schedule for a private strip 82 kilometers east of Annapolis. Inside, the defenders were starting to understand what had really been hit. This wasn't a manhunt. It was an erasure of deniability. By 4:07, Sentinel Advisory Group's first SUVs were stacking on the county road, boxed behind stalled farm equipment and bad information. They had been told the fire was accidental. They had been told the villa was secure. They had been told the archive had already moved. All 3 reports were false. Outside, Alpha held the perimeter just long enough for the extraction convoy to load the binders, tablet, route books, and both crates into 2 unmarked carriers with reinforced suspension. Inside the villa, denial had already started. Not spectacle. Not a blast for the camera. Cold denial. Network trunks were severed from the archive spine, storage media were rendered unreadable by controlled destruction already authorized for the operation, and the cooling system that protected the hidden vaults was left dead and flooded. The objective was seized. The site was sealed against fast reuse. The rebuild cost had just become strategic punishment. By 4:13, Black Orchard was still standing, but it was finished. The outer fence sagged in 2 sections. The generator shed was dark. The mirrored villa windows reflected emergency light from vehicles that could no longer help the men inside. The Mastermind was not in the compound. That was the one thing the raiders had expected. What they wanted was the hand that pointed to him. They got it. The tablet held 312 encrypted images, 27 clipped voice notes, and a running schedule that matched vehicle movement near the executive complex to within 4 minutes on 3 separate dates. The binders held pay sheets, access rosters, and a yellow legal pad listing 16 names under one title, Replacement Chain. This wasn't a capture. It was the removal of a network's future. The exfil rolled north at 4:16. Time on ground was now 59 minutes. Rain thickened over the county line as the last rear lights cleared the tree cover west of the Patuxent Spur Road. Behind them, Black Orchard had been denied as a live node. No usable archive. No intact relay map. No rapid recovery. No warning left to send. Final numbers: 2 friendly killed, 7 wounded, 0 missing. Adversary losses stood at 11 killed, 19 wounded, 13 captured. 3 couriers were intercepted off-site within 90 minutes. 2 steel crates, 5 binders, 1 tablet, 3 route books, and 1 partial burn packet entered custody. Estimated rebuild cost for the compound and network loss, $86 million, not counting the strategic value of the seized chain of command evidence. Objective seized. Denial achieved. Time on ground, 59 minutes. What they miscalculated was not force size, or fence height, or how many defenders fit inside a hardened perimeter. They miscalculated repetition. They repeated truck routes, repeated shift habits, repeated signal bursts, repeated confidence, and built a sealed world that ran on the same minute marks every night. Comment clock below if you want the next file on the Mastermind the Ledger finally exposed. They thought concrete, money, and distance would buy one more dawn. Instead, 107 operators crossed 34 kilometers of darkness, took custody of the proof, and left a network deaf, blind, and expensive to rebuild. Share this because what happened at Black Orchard did not end at the gate.